How can public transportation better compete with the car? There are three different strategies that can help reduce car use. Force people to abandon the car, entice people to abandon the car, or enabling the need to be satisfied remotely. People can be forced by legal means to abandon their car by restricting their use. For example, ceasing to issue new license plates, banning the driving of cars on certain days based on their license plates, etc., etc. In my opinion, such initiatives are difficult to enforce in the Maltese context, because for such a measure to be effective, it needs to be enforced on the whole urbanized part of the island. Experience has shown that unless a colossal investment is done to increase the number of enforcement personnel and cameras, it is feasible to enforce only some parts of the main arteries. To avoid being caught, drivers would resort to red running, exacerbating the problem. If the local authorities were finding it difficult to enforce a single bus lane, how are they expected to enforce the whole road network? More importantly, in my opinion, people should be free to make their own choices. They should be free to choose to remain stuck in traffic with public transport vehicles whiz by. Furthermore, such restrictive measures will undoubtedly prove to be unpopular with the public and therefore are politically undesirable. Such measures would also be discriminatory if certain people, such as ministers, are exempted from the scheme. The aim of the urban transport planner should not be to force people to use public transportation, but to entice them to do so. Although economists are of the opinion that economical disincentives such as congestion pricing, fuel taxes, and parking meters force people to abandon their car, research has shown that, although effective, they are secondary to time, because people are more willing to sacrifice their economical budget rather than their temporal budget. In other words, people are willing to pay more to be able to save time. Economical disincentives are also discriminatory, in that choices are restricted only to those that have a lesser income. Economic disincentives may potentially increase the prestige of the car, which would increase the desirability of car use. The effect therefore counters the efforts to reduce car use. Similarly, economical incentives to use public transport, such as free public transportation, will not induce a major shift to public transportation because the most important criteria is time, not money. In conclusion, urban and traffic planners and politicians have the highest probability of inducing a modal shift away from the car by decreasing travel time of the modes competing with the car. It may also be contemplated, where appropriate, to increase the travel time of the car. Before continuing on how public transport may be well planned, let us take a look at other solutions to solving the congestion problem suggested by the Maltese public on social media. Motorcycles. Motorcycles seem a very quick and cheap fix to alleviate congestion. They require much less land than the car to be both driven and parked. Despite the big congestion problem, however, still only a fraction of the Maltese population use them because they are perceived to be dangerous to drive. Furthermore, motorcycles are not used on rainy days because of both the discomfort and the increased danger. Relying on motorcycles would therefore bring the country to a standstill on rainy days. Furthermore, although more fuel efficient and emitting less carbon dioxide than the car, motorcycles emit more smog-forming hydrocarbons, oxygen of nitrogen, and toxic carbon monoxide than cars do. Cycling. Many environmental groups such as PAG advocate for increased bicycle use because cycling is environmentally friendly. In gridlocked areas, bicycles are able to squeeze through areas that even motorcycles cannot go through. As a commuter cyclist myself, in both Malta and abroad, however, I do not think that in the Maltese context bicycles are the answer, because the rough topography constrains its use to only a fraction of the population that is physically fit enough. Furthermore, Malta's hot weather would also require cyclists to wash themselves at the destination. Bicycle use would therefore drop on very hot or very wet days. Finally, due to their slow speed, they may be potentially dangerous, especially in free-flowing arterial roads with no adequate bicycle infrastructure. Pedelecs, electric motorcycles and mopeds. Pedelecs, electric motorcycles and mopeds not only require less land to be driven and parked than the car, but also are environmentally friendly, assuming that the recharging source is clean too. Like conventional motorcycles and bicycles though, they are perceived to be potentially dangerous to travel with, and not used on rainy days. Electric vehicles. Electric vehicles do not ease traffic congestion, they only make congested roads quieter and more breathable. Taxis. Taxis do not ease congestion because a taxi requires the same space on the road as a private car. Taxis do ease the parking problem though. Car sharing. Car sharing can be effective if a group of people regularly have similar trip patterns. People, however, do not always have similar trip patterns. The ultimate car sharing solution is public transport, since a person is free to car share with other commuters on a large scale, will still be able to retain his own schedule. Building of a metro. The decision of whether infrastructure for a particular mode of public transportation is to be built should be taken after the network is planned and as part of a holistic transport plan. Talking about a metro is irrelevant if the other parts of the network are not considered as well. Take for example a Gossetin that works at St. Vincent de Paul. He may take the metro from Gozo to the airport, but at the airport he needs to be able to catch the bus without having to wait for a disproportionate period of time. A better argument to saying that a metro is to be introduced is to say that public transportation is to be bettered. Public transport here is conceived to be a seamless network of different modes with integrated timetabling. The modes can be the bus, train, or ferry. Public transportation may be supported by other modes such as walking, cycling, taxis, and even the private car itself. Furthermore, no monetary or temporal penalties are to be incurred on the traveler for transferring from one mode to another. Just as the car-centric planning perspective has failed in the United States of America and Australia, so too has the public transport perspective derived from new urbanism was successful in Central Europe. In this regard, public transportation can therefore provide a viable alternative to the private car. The economy of scale that public transport can provide makes it the most efficient mode of transportation in terms of land use. It can also be more environmentally friendly if the system is used. Public transportation is also a very socially equitable mode because it allows those with low incomes or with disabilities to still be able to independently satisfy their needs without having to rely on another person to drive them. The biggest hurdle that public transportation systems face, however, is its planning, from the layout of its network to the scheduling of its routes. The conclusion, therefore, is that since the most efficient way for people to move in urban areas is public transportation, urban planners should concentrate on improving public transportation over the other modes. Other measures, such as car sharing initiatives, cycling, and electric motorcycle usage may be pursued, but only to complement public transport, not compete with it. Infrastructure projects are to be designed to aid public transportation. Take for example the roundabout just outside the Valletta terminus. It is bewildering that buses are not given priority to such an important hub. The importance of travel time and travel time reliability are to be paramount factors to be considered. Finally, Dr. Paul Mees suggests that since time is the most important factor in mode choice, urban planners should try to keep car congestion levels up, so that public transportation can better compete with the car. It would be easier for car users to change to public transport if the bus speeds past a car stuck in traffic. In land use planning, public transportation is to be conceived as a medium to long distance solution, whilst walking and cycling are to be used for shorter distance trips. Finally, park and rides are to serve as a feeder from the remote communities to the public transport network. Thank you for watching. If you want to delve deeper into why road widening does not work, I highly recommend the book by Dr. Paul Mees called Transport for Suburbia: Beyond the Automobile Age. All references in this video are listed in the description box below. Bye bye and take care.